Hi everyone, this is David. Welcome back to the channel. We're still running here. Today we are headed to Hebron, Ohio to National Trail Raceway. Today and tomorrow, this weekend is the last weekend of 2022 for the JEGS ET Series. At the end of this series, they'll be crowning the track championship. So it's only 10:15. It's been raining this morning, and I'm sure they're working on getting the track dried out right now. So by the time I get there, I feel relatively comfortable in saying they'll already be doing time trials. But I'm going to experiment a little bit. As you guys know, while car shows and drag racing and things like that have been the principal focus of the channel, it's not really what the channel's all about. And there's another gentleman out of Wales named Joshua Pegg, and I'm going to put the link to his channel below, who has got a channel on photography, on introductory photography and using introductory gear. And it really appealed to me because he really does. He gets some magnificent images with, for the most part, relatively introductory equipment. So what we're going to do, and I'm sorry, I segued off into left field sometime. This is what old age looks like. So what we're going to do today is we're going to make some adjustments. I've got two cameras in my bag. I brought a camera from my studio, which is my Canon 5D Mark III, and I brought two lenses for it, which is a 24-70 and a 24-105. I like the 105. I think the 105 is going to be ideal for the races because it really has good compression. The other camera I brought with me is my Canon 70D. Now, here's the caveat to that. I just recently bought this 70D. Yes, they got 90D is already out, and I just recently bought this 70D and the lens that I got on it. And I'm going to tell you the rest of this story as soon as we get done with the introduction. All right, you ready, Wonder Mutt? Key the music. So this is what we're going to do. I really want to encourage more people to get out and take images, to learn your equipment, to take the time to see how the camera works. It's a bad habit that we've really gotten into these days, and it's not just with photography. And I'm not trying to single anybody out, but we tend to want things to be cheaper, faster, easier, and more of it. You know, we basically have three philosophies. And I'm a boomer, you know, I'm 59 years old. So I grew up in the time when more things were delayed gratification. You know, there was something you wanted, you worked hard, you saved up for it, and you bought it, just like I did with, you know, my motorcycle and so many other things. Being self-employed, I don't carry much debt, ever. And it's just, it's ingrained into the society in which I was raised. So getting back to the cameras, I really want to see more people follow that interest or follow that passion that they have in photography, and not fall back on the cell phone camera because it's convenient or it's easy, or it's because as good as those cameras are, they'll never be as good as a DSLR. They'll never have the versatility of a DSLR. And whether it's an SLR, a mirrorless, what it is. So what I did to kind of prove my point is, first of all, people like to say the better the camera, the better the picture. In essence, that's true, but not always. It really depends on how well you know the equipment and how well you know this equipment. So I have a 24, 25 megapixel Canon 70D. I have my 5D Mark II, my 24 to 105, my 24x70 lens. 24x70 I typically use for portraits, but the 105, I like the 105 because it has good compression. You can, if you're back far enough and you're zoomed out far enough, you can really pull the background in close to whatever it is that you're focusing on. But I jumped online to a store out of New York, I believe, that I've used many, many times before, called B&H Photo. And I'm not getting anything from B&H. This is just a store that I have continuously used. There's another one, Adorama, which I've also used, but I use B&H probably more than anything because I've had such good service. I've had such good... The products are as described. They're relatively competitive. So B&H Photo is a good place to go. But I went to their used camera department and I bought a used 70D. This 70D is probably, I don't know, it's probably 8 or 10 years old. And it only had, I think it only had like 5,000, 3,000, 5,000 exposures on it, which is nothing. I have camera bodies at home. I have one that has 254,000 exposures on it, and it still works. So I bought a used camera, and I bought a used kit 18x35 lens. 18x135, sorry. 18x135 zoom lens. I've already tried them out, tested them out. I jumped on Amazon and ordered a couple spare batteries because the batteries for it are different than the batteries for the 5D Mark III. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to use both cameras, and I'm going to set my white balance. It's cloudy today. I'm not going to use auto white balance. I'm going to set my white balance to cloudy. I may set it to daylight, or depending. Right now it's mostly cloudy, so cloudy would be ideal. But I'm going to set my white balance. I'm not going to use auto white balance, and I'm going to shoot in JPEG. Now, I typically, almost everything that you see on my website and it is shot in RAW. I like shooting in RAW. I shoot in RAW because it is just what it says. It's a RAW file. It gives you all the data. But almost every sports photographer out there shoots in JPEG. Now, RAW files have to be processed. They have to be converted to something that the computer can use. I typically use Lightroom or Camera Raw to process my images, and then when I export them to JPEG. So when you see them on the screen, they're JPEGs. But I shoot in RAW. So today, I've got both cameras set to large JPEG. So I'm going to be shooting with two cameras. I'm going to be shooting with a 5D Mark III with a 24 to 105 lens, and I'm going to be shooting with my this 70D with an 18x135 lens, also set to JPEG. I have selected the central point on, they have 19 focus points. I've selected the central point. I'm going to try to shoot between f8 and f11, and I will probably shoot around 400 ISO. 400 simply because it is a little bit cloudy. I'm also going to shoot at high speed burst. The reason most sports photographers, or many that I know, most that I know, shoot in JPEG is just for that reason. You don't have as many edit options in JPEG. The file is compressed. You can get more on the card. You can literally plug the camera into the side of your computer, grab the files and drag them and drop them in. If you're using a handheld version of, on your tablet or on your phone of Adobe Lightroom or Adobe Photoshop, if you're using the app, you can actually Wi-Fi transfer them from your camera to your phone. I'm told it's a very lengthy process. I've never tried it. But I want to take myself back down to what somebody just starting out would probably be using. I would encourage you all that as your skills grow, that you shoot more raw, that you practice with your controls, you practice. So center point focus, high speed burst, white balance to cloudy, JPEG format, 2 cameras, 5D Mark II, full frame, 24 to 105 EF lens, Canon 70D, 18 to 135 kit lens, also set the JPEG, cloudy, everything, all the settings would be the same. But what I want you guys to see is if you can tell the difference between the images. Now, obviously I can't fire them both at the same time, I can only fire them one at a time, but throughout the course of the video and throughout the course of the races, I'm curious to see who will really be able to tell the difference. The kit lens is, in direct sunlight, especially when the sunlight is in front of you and it's shining on an object, you're more likely to get what's called chromatic aberration, which is if you ever zoom in and look at like the side of the side of the car or something like that, and you'll see like this sometimes it's a greenish haze, sometimes it's red. It's an aberration along the side of it. That is more common with kit lenses. I've never seen any chromatic aberration whatsoever in my 24 to 105, but those are usually used in controlled circumstances. I've used this 24 to 105 many times at national trails. It's a good lens. It's a dependable lens. Most sports photographers are more they're more inclined to use things with a little longer lens, something like the Canon 28-200 f2.8. So that's going to be the experiment for today. It's a 2-day race event. So I will be out there today and I will be out there tomorrow. I don't know how many photos I'll take. Usually it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,000 or more per day. But I'm hoping that, following in the footsteps of my brethren before me that shoot sporting events and things like that, I'm hoping that this will help speed up my processing time. Because when you edit a file in RAW, and I never keep anything local on the computer hard drive itself. I have external hard drives that I export everything to. So when you're exporting a large RAW file that's 20-25 meg, it takes a little more time. These JPEGs are going to be considerably smaller files because they're going to be compressed. That's what the JPEG does. It makes the file more wieldy, or more unwieldy, by making it a compressed file. But that also decreases the quality. So today's experiment is going to be a full frame camera versus a crop sensor, an EF lens, a very expensive lens, versus an 18-135 kit lens, JPEG versus RAW. I may have to backtrack a little bit here. I think I may have said that I was going to have the 5D Mark III on JPEG. I'm not. I'm going to have it in RAW. I'm only going to shoot the 70D on JPEG. So one will be shooting RAW, one shooting JPEG, one shooting with a professional lens, one shooting with what's called a prosumer lens, which means the 70D is good enough to be used professionally, but its price point at I think they're around $1,500–$1,600 now for a kit. It's more likely to be purchased by a consumer. The 5D, the body alone is, it's $4,000 or $5,000. The 5D Mark IVs are already out. The last thing that I want to touch on is brand. You've got your Nikon users, you've got your Sony users, you've got your Olympus users, you've got your Canon users. Everybody keeps asking me the same question over and over, no matter where I go. Which is better, Canon or Nikon? And the answer is they both have strengths and weaknesses. I began using Canon when I was in the service. It was readily available at the PX. We're talking in the 80s. I was using an AE1 35mm. It has become like old leather. It's comfortable. I do believe, and this is from personal experience, that Nikon definitely has better lenses. They have better glass. I think their glass is better. Even their kit lenses, I think, are better. But Nikon started out as a lens company, and they do make some good glass. As for the performance day in, day out of the camera body, I really can't testify to that, because I've never used one over and over and over and over again, day in and day out, like I have the Canons. I like Canon. All of my equipment is Canon compatible. My wireless triggers, my fire the flash, my cable releases, everything that I've purchased is Canon related. I would be foolish to just go out and buy a Nikon or a Sony A7 or an Olympus and have to repurchase so much of that equipment. It would not be a wise business decision when you know from experience that you really don't know how much, if at all, better the images will be. I know what that Canon will do. I can put it through its paces. I can push even this 70D, and the controls on the back of it are almost identical. I can thumb through these things, hit the ISO, change so many things. It's second nature. It's like knowing where the gear shift and turn signal and the windshield wipers are on your car. It's second nature to me, and it's comfortable. And I will continue to use Canon probably for as long as I'm shooting. As far as the Rebel lines, I think we're coming to the end of the line with the Rebels. I'm not sure what's out there now. Was the T7 or T8 or T7i or 8i or I don't know. I know a few years ago they came out with the M50 mirrorless, and I know that the R series are also mirrorless. The mirror, what they're referring to is there's a mirror that lays down. If you ever take the lens off of a DSLR and you look inside of it, you'll see a mirror right there. When you look through the reticule, you look through a series of mirrors that bounces off and goes out the lens, so that you're literally seeing through the lens. And when you fire the shutter and the shutter activates, the mirror flips up and exposes the sensor underneath. The crop sensors have a smaller sensor, and the full frames have a sensor the size of a 35mm. That's why it's called a full frame. With the mirrorless, when you look through the reticule, you're actually looking at, for all intents and purposes, an LCD screen. The camera, the sensor is seeing the image, and it's sending it up to the reticule and showing you what it's seeing. The first ones that came out, they had some issues with the resolution. The ones that are out there now, it's my understanding they're very, very good. I haven't used one yet. What will my next one be? I don't know. I don't jump on this endless merry-go-round of the next new thing. I don't. I buy equipment as I need it. When I shot the shuttle launch in 2009, I didn't go out and buy a great big old long lens. I rented it. That lens would have been several $1,000s, $4,000 or $5,000, for a lens that I literally might never use again. I don't have any idea. So I buy things as I need them, and I rent them if I just need them for 1 or 2 shoots. There's a lot of places out there that you can rent from. I've never gotten a bad one. I always test them out ahead of time. If I need it for 3 days, I rent it for 4. So I got a day to practice with it, work with it, and know where everything's at. So I know I'm jumping all over the topics here. What I do, and when I typically shoot in RAW, is a personal choice. RAW is, to me, a better format. It's a larger file. It has more information. In post-processing, you have a lot more options. For sports photographers who, I mean, you're talking about an image that if it does appear in a magazine or online, it's no bigger than a 4x6. A photographer who's going to be shooting something for the cover in a studio environment, he's going to shoot in RAW format too. But for the action, for something you have to turn over relatively quickly, they just shoot in JPEG. They can download the images, they can select the first one, select the second one, batch them all the same way with the same settings, because they typically don't even have to, if you're in an enclosed environment in a stadium and you're shooting at F10 at high speed burst at 1/300, 1/400th of a second, you're in an absolutely controlled environment, and those photos are not going to change the exposure one from the next, from the next, from the next. Outside, it's a little more different. I typically will select the aperture that I want, which is usually between f8 and f11. I like the mid-range apertures. It's personal preference. I do try to keep the ISO below 800. I can go up to 1600 on the 5D because the files are so much bigger, without a lot of noise, without a lot of graininess. With this 70D, I really don't know because I haven't practiced with it that much. I owned a 40D, a 50D, and a 60D prior to this, and I still own I think I still own the 50 and the 60, and I use them a lot for things like hobby photography, wildlife, things like that. They're good cameras. But I reserve my full frames for the studio. Is it overkill? In my honest opinion, yes, because gear doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter if you take the time to really learn what the camera can do. And once you've learned what the camera can really do, you'll find that your post-processing, I don't hardly do any post. I don't do hardly any post at all. I may bump a little contrast here or there. I may, increase the vibrance. I'll set the sliders on my black and white so that they're not clipping. But I don't really do a lot of post-processing. I almost always add a vignette to just about every picture, simply because it helps to draw the viewer's eye where you want it to go. So I've bounced around to a lot of subjects here, and I'm sorry, are you going to let me in, knucklehead? Good grief. So I bounced around to a lot of subjects here. You guys almost got to watch me have an accident. And I hope that I haven't inundated you too much. But I really want to encourage you. Photography can be affordable. You can buy a used, we'll say, Canon Rebel. T3, T4, T5, T6, whatever. These have different nomenclatures, I think, in different countries. They have like the I don't know, D300, D350, D400, etc., etc., etc. But if you have any doubts, find a reputable company like B&H, like Adorama, and buy a little used unit. You'll spend half or 3/4 as much Are you going to get a fancy bag and a 70 to 300 lens and all this, that, and the other? No, you're not. But the truth of the matter is, most of that equipment that they're going to give you, like the bag, if you carry any significant equipment at all, you're going to outgrow that bag. And we'll talk about camera bags and stuff later on. I've got my own unique little contraption down here I carry. But so there you go. I want to encourage you all to get out there, take some photos, and I will narrate this some more when we get to the track, and let you know what I got going on. And I'm going to do the same thing. I have 2 action cameras. They're not expensive, as you know. I mean, clearly the quality of the video is not very good compared to, you know, 4K. I'm shooting 30 frames per second. You know, I just, the video is a supplement to the still images. The idea was to show you guys a real quick snippet of the race, and then show you the images that I took, and then try to give you some kind of explanation, even though it's been relatively brief in the past, some kind of explanation of how I got that shot, so you can go out and do the same thing and build on that technique. So that's what I really want to do. I want to encourage everybody. These races, like you've heard me say many, many, many times before, they're $12. $12 to come out here and shoot all day long. Last weekend, and you're going to be seeing the video coming up pretty soon, I did a car show at Mott's Military Museum. That video is almost done now, and it should be ready to, it'll probably drop before this one. There is just, and it's like, I don't know, it's like $8 or $10 to get into Mott's. And there's so much to see. Go over to the Air Force Museum in Dayton, Ohio. If you live in Central Ohio, it's 90 minutes from me. I've shot over there, I don't know how many times, and you're going to see a lot more stuff coming up. To get out and explore this world that you're in, to meet these people, to social media, I'm on it. I use it because it's essential to my business. But I absolutely cannot stand sitting on that couch all day long with that phone or tablet or sitting on that computer. I get on and try to answer the messages and try to do the things that I've got to do. But past that, I would rather be out shooting. I would rather come back from the races today with a camera full of JPEG files that are just absolutely garbage and have learned something, or even, and it has happened, come home with a camera full of raw files that for whatever reason I did something wrong, and then to just sit on the couch, you know. I mean, I don't know where the years have gone. I'm in my 6th decade of life. And so I want to get out and enjoy all of it that I can. And it doesn't matter whether it's a car show, or the races, or a museum, or the park. If you like taking wildlife or nature photography, get out there and enjoy it. Get out there and enjoy your life, because it goes by so fast. So we're coming up on 70 East here, and I'm going to jump off this highway and onto another. So we will see you guys at the track. Well, since I nattered on so much as when I was coming up here, you can hear we're sitting here just outside the tower. So we're going to go ahead and get our gear together, put together a couple of cameras, slap on our knee pads. I've got some new hearing protection, which will be infinitely more convenient than the earplugs, albeit considerably more expensive. We're going to get set up, grab our throne, and get out there trackside. So let's go take some pictures. Alright, so as you can see, we are trackside. They're doing the time trials now. Time trials will go on, and then we'll get down to the actual racing after that. But they're a little delayed getting started because the track was damp because it's spring. I did make one other change to the camera. I shifted over to aperture priority. I want to shoot with an aperture of f9, f10, something like that. So I'm going to let the camera take care of the shutter speed. Right now it's running about, at 400 ISO, it's running about 1/1600th of a second. So stay tuned. Okay, I didn't get a chance to say it beforehand because I walked out to look for somebody in particular. Look at the camera, Dave. I walked out to look for one of the racers, but This is the Junior Dragster, and I got the information on the Junior Dragsters. I'll make sure to slide it in here. As soon as Junior Dragsters get done here, it'll be time for Super Pro. So I'm going to get this last little guy here. Well, that was day one of the JEGS ET series. Some good racing out there today, a lot of fun. Weather was just absolutely gorgeous. I haven't, obviously I won't be downloading the images till I get to the house. I did, and I don't know if I mentioned this on here or not, I switched to aperture priority, and then I increased it by 1/3 of a stop. I really like the freedom that it gave me. I don't typically shoot in any of the automatic modes at all. Not aperture priority, not shutter priority. I typically shoot completely in manual. But I think aperture priority in this particular case, especially with racing, is going to give me more consistency. The only thing that I noticed so far between the two cameras is that the 18x135 kit lens, I had it on AI servo, which is AI servo, for those of you that aren't familiar with it. The lens is constantly searching. It's constantly focusing in and out and in and out and in and out. And there were a handful of times when the 18x135 couldn't get the focus. I didn't have it at all on the 5D Mark III, but I did have it on the 70D. Now, I don't know if that's a trait with the 70D. The only way that I can find out for sure is when we do this tomorrow, because tomorrow's another day of racing. I'll swap the lenses, put the 24-105 on the 70D, and see if it continues doing that. It kind of fudges my experiment a little bit to see if you could get great images on both cameras. I realize that racing is unique. It's not something that a lot of people photograph, but I've always treated photography like a buffet. I don't shoot any one thing, and I think I've mentioned this in videos before. I don't shoot weddings at all anymore, because simply I'm too old. But I like portraiture, I like landscape, I like commercial, I love racing. I think I love the racing more than anything else because of the people. And the people are just amazing. The drivers, everybody just welcomes you right in. They're willing to tell you about their car, how they got it, how they did it, what's in it. So, but we're gonna jump on the highway here, head back home, get these images downloaded, and get the batteries charged back up, because we're gonna be back out here probably around 11 o'clock or so tomorrow, and we're gonna be shooting another 6-7 hours tomorrow, providing we got to watch the weather. They are calling for a little bit of rain in the morning. So thanks everybody for watching day one of the JEGS ET series, National Trail Raceway. If you like the video, give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment, subscribe to the channel. Please help us grow. If you want to see something different, please let me know. If you want to see some differences in the way that I present the information or the way that I present the videos, I'd love to have your feedback. I'd love to know what you think. All right? So we will see you all next time.